The rain had been falling for almost an hour when Daniel Carter, the CEO of one of the most successful restaurant chains in the city, stepped out of his black luxury car. It was nearly closing time, and Daniel had come to inspect his flagship restaurant without telling anyone. He believed that if employees knew he was coming, they would show him only what they wanted him to see. He wanted to know what really happened inside his restaurants after the customers left. As he approached the back entrance, he noticed a small figure standing beneath the restaurant's narrow roof. It was a little girl, perhaps 8 years old, wearing an oversized gray sweater and old shoes that were soaked from the rain. Her hair was messy, and she was holding a small plastic bag in both hands. Daniel stopped when he heard her voice. "Excuse me, sir." He looked down at her. "Yes?" The girl lowered her eyes nervously. "Do you have any expired food?" Daniel was confused. "Expired food?" She nodded. "Anything you can't sell anymore. Bread, vegetables, chicken, anything. I can take it home." Daniel stared at her for several seconds. He had heard people ask for food before, but never like this. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for fresh food. She was asking for something the restaurant considered worthless. Daniel crouched down so he could look at her properly. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated before answering. "Lily." "Where are your parents, Lily?" Her fingers tightened around the plastic bag. "My mom is sick. It's just me and her." Daniel's expression changed. "And you came here alone?" Lily nodded. "We didn't have dinner yesterday." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He looked toward the restaurant's back door. Inside, employees were throwing away trays of untouched food because company policy required them to dispose of anything that had passed its sell-by time, even if it was still safe to eat. Daniel had signed that policy himself years earlier. He had always thought of food waste as a business problem, not a human problem. "Wait here," he told Lily. She immediately looked worried. "Please don't call the police." Daniel frowned. "Why would I call the police?" Lily looked down. "Sometimes people think children like me are stealing." Daniel shook his head. "You're not stealing anything." He walked inside and asked the manager to bring him the food that was scheduled to be discarded. The manager looked confused but followed his instructions. Within minutes, several bags of bread, fresh vegetables, prepared meals, and sealed food items were brought outside. Daniel checked every package himself, making sure nothing was spoiled or unsafe. Then he handed the bags to Lily. Her eyes became wide. "All this?" she whispered. "It's yours." She hugged the bag against her chest. "Thank you." Daniel watched her turn toward the street. Something about the way she carried the food bothered him. She wasn't excited like a child receiving a gift. She looked relieved, as if someone had just given her another day to survive. "Lily," he called. She stopped. "Where do you live?" She pointed toward an old apartment building several blocks away. Daniel looked at the rain and then at her thin shoes. "I'll take you home." During the drive, Lily sat quietly in the back seat. She was afraid to touch anything inside the expensive car. Daniel noticed that she kept staring at the food bags beside her. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Lily nodded. Daniel stopped at one of his restaurants and ordered a fresh meal for her. When the food arrived, Lily didn't eat immediately. Instead, she asked, "Can I take half of it to my mom?" Daniel looked at her. "Of course." She smiled for the first time. After they reached her apartment, Daniel followed her upstairs. The building was old and poorly maintained. Lily opened the door and Daniel saw a tiny room with almost no furniture. Her mother was lying on a worn-out sofa, looking weak. Lily rushed toward her. "Mom, look, I brought food." Her mother tried to sit up and immediately began crying when she saw Daniel. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "She shouldn't have bothered you." Daniel shook his head. "She didn't bother me." He looked around the small apartment and realized that Lily's problem could not be solved with one bag of food. He had spent years building restaurants, expanding businesses, and making millions of dollars, yet he had never stopped to ask where the food he threw away ended up. That night, Daniel returned home unable to sleep. He kept remembering Lily's question, "Do you have any expired food?" The next morning, he called his management team. "Cancel the waste policy," he said. His executives were shocked. "Sir, what policy?" Daniel looked at them. "The one that allows us to throw away food without checking. whether it can safely be donated. He paused. From today, every restaurant we own will separate safe surplus food and deliver it to shelters and families who need it. But Daniel wasn't finished. He also asked his assistant to find Lily's family and arrange proper medical care for her mother. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't thinking about profit. He was thinking about a little girl who had taught him the value of something he had been throwing away. 3 months later, the back entrance of Daniel's flagship restaurant looked completely different. Instead of dumpsters filled with untouched food, there were organized refrigerated containers marked for donation. Every evening, employees carefully separated safe surplus meals: bread, vegetables, and packaged food. Volunteers collected the donations and delivered them to shelters, community centers, and families struggling to afford groceries. Daniel had created a program called Second Plate, and within weeks, other restaurant owners began copying it. But Daniel's greatest concern remained Lily and her mother. Lily's mother had received medical treatment and was slowly recovering. Daniel had also helped them move into a small but comfortable apartment where Lily finally had a proper bed and a desk for school. He never called it charity. Whenever Lily thanked him, Daniel simply said, "Someone helped me once when I needed it. I'm only passing it forward." Lily returned to school and quickly became one of the brightest students in her class. She still remembered the rainy night when she had stood outside Daniel's restaurant asking for food that was about to be thrown away. One afternoon, Daniel visited her school because the principal wanted to thank him for supporting a new school meal program. Lily saw him from across the hallway and ran toward him. "Mr. Carter," she shouted. Daniel smiled. "How are you, Lily?" She proudly showed him a drawing she had made. It showed a restaurant with hundreds of people sitting at tables. Above the restaurant was a large sign that read, "Nobody leaves hungry." Daniel looked at the picture for a long moment. "Did you draw this?" Lily nodded. "That's what I want to build when I'm older." Daniel smiled. "A restaurant?" She shook her head. "No, a place where everyone can eat." Her words stayed with Daniel. He realized that helping Lily had changed his life as much as he had changed hers. Before meeting her, he measured success by restaurant openings, revenue, awards, and the size of his company. Now he measured it by how many people went to bed without hunger because his business had helped them. Within a year, Second Plate expanded across the city. Daniel partnered with shelters and food banks, and his restaurants began offering free meals to children and families in need. He also created scholarships for young people whose families struggled financially. His employees noticed that Daniel had changed. He was still demanding, still hardworking, and still serious about his business, but he had become more compassionate. He often walked through his restaurants after closing and personally checked the donation containers. Whenever someone asked why he cared so much, he gave the same answer. "A little girl once asked me for food I was about to throw away. She reminded me that what we call waste can mean survival to someone else." 5 years passed. Lily was now 13. Her mother was healthy and working again. Lily continued to excel at school and had developed a dream of becoming a chef. On her birthday, Daniel surprised her by taking her to the kitchen of his flagship restaurant. The chefs prepared a special meal, but Daniel asked Lily to cook something herself. She stood at the counter wearing a small chef's jacket with her name embroidered across it. She prepared a simple vegetable soup using ingredients donated through the Second Plate program. When everyone tasted it, the restaurant manager smiled and said, "That's one of the best soups we've ever served." Lily laughed. Daniel looked at her proudly. "Remember the night you came here?" Lily nodded. "I was scared." Daniel smiled softly. "So was I." Lily looked surprised. "You were scared?" Daniel nodded. "I was scared because I realized I had everything and still didn't understand what mattered." Lily walked over and hugged him. "You changed my life." Daniel hugged her back. "No, Lily, you changed mine." He looked around the restaurant, remembering the little girl standing outside in the rain, with an empty stomach and a plastic bag in her hands. That single encounter had transformed a business into something bigger than profit. Daniel had learned that sometimes the most important moments in life don't arrive with wealth, applause, or success. Sometimes they arrive quietly, wearing an oversized sweater, standing in the rain, and asking for something everyone else considers worthless. Years later, Daniel would often tell the story of Lily at business conferences. Not because he wanted praise, but because he wanted other business owners to understand the lesson she had taught him. Never call something worthless, he would say, until you understand what it means to someone who needs it. And every night, when the restaurants closed and the last customers left, no safe meal was thrown away. Every extra plate found its way to someone who needed it. Somewhere in the city, Lily was growing up with a dream of opening her own restaurant one day. Above its entrance, she already knew what the sign would say. Come hungry, leave with hope.